Okay. Hello, everybody. Thank you for coming out to learn about how to make a design portfolio. And Stephanie and I worked on this. Right now, she might have internet issues, so Chimaya might like step in randomly during the presentation. Okay. All right. Can everyone see my screen? Cool.
Oh,
All
yeah, I
right.
can see your screen, Annie.
Thank you. So as you can tell from the title, we're going to work on design portfolios. And what is a design portfolio? So it's basically a platform, and it doesn't have to be a website, but any kind of platform where you can showcase any design piece that you worked on and any design experience that you've participated in. Why are they important? Okay, there you go. So it's super duper important for careers and work. So the three main areas is when you're applying for any type of job or internship, they're always going to ask you for your portfolio. If it's a product design position, graphic design, UX, UI design, whatever it is, they're going to ask you for your work because they want to make sure that you have experience in whatever skills that they're looking for. And on top of that, if you plan to do freelance design, where basically freelance design is when you are your own boss and clients come to you to ask you to do work for them, then if that's the case, having a design portfolio showcases that, you have the ability to do projects for them. And this creates some kind of trust between a stranger that potentially can hire you. Do's and don'ts. Also, I cannot really see the chat. So if there's like questions at any point, like feel free to drop them in the chat. And then like hopefully somebody can tell me that
I'll say
somebody
them.
asked the
Don't worry.
question. Perfect. Okay. The do's and don'ts. Okay. Do tell your audience about yourself. Yes, you have projects and you've probably done amazing work, but putting a face to the work you've done is super crucial because think about how if you are a recruiter, you're seeing thousands of portfolios a day, right? So going through them like every single day can be really tiring and it's hard to remember whose work is standing out. So you want to put a face to it so that they can remember your face at least, right? Okay. Next is don't showcase every single piece you've ever designed. So again, think like a recruiter. They don't have hours to look through your portfolio. So it's super important that you showcase your best pieces and just showcase a few pieces so that they have like maybe I would say 5 minutes to look through your portfolio. They can like skim through everything and get a gist of what you've done in the past. So just a tip, if you're like really proud of all the work you've done, try to narrow it down by basically choosing projects that are mutually exclusive, right? So for example, if you've done web design for this project, then have that piece. But if you have another web design project that you're proud of, remove that piece. And then if you have like a mobile design versus a graphic design, brand design piece, so you want one of each to really showcase your like breadth of knowledge and your breadth of experience. Cool. Next is please include your resume because it's really easy for the recruiter to just find all the information about you in one place. They don't have to dig through the application. They could just, go from portfolio to resume very fast. Don't make it difficult for your audience to find your projects and case studies. So I have a picture of this at the bottom left corner, and it might be difficult to tell, but if you look at this right now, I think you guys can already tell it's kind of hard. Like, where do I click? There's not really a button. So actually the buttons here, like about this teeny tiny button here, and then like projects and like introduction. So like this already makes it very difficult for anybody to find the work. And yes, this is beautiful, the design, and it's unique. But like if you're making it extremely difficult, it might be really frustrating for someone who's just trying to look at those projects.
Yeah, this is where I kind of like to jump in and try to emphasize the difference between art and design that's really shown here. Because with art, function tends to follow form. So the form of how you're building out something is its function. So the way you're making it look unique, where you're making it visually distinct, that's very artistic. And as you can see, this portfolio is super artistic. But Design takes into account functionality just as much as that. Like Crystal said in the chat, and like Annie said out here. Like you
Yeah.
can see that even though this looks really pretty, it's not super usable. And ultimately, recruiters, even though they'll have a great first impression, they're going to get frustrated and they'll click away, or anybody that really visits the site. So you're trying to be friendly to how your target audience uses your portfolio, not just how they see it. That's how you really think like a designer, and you really have to think like a designer even when you're creating the portfolio, because in a sense, this is a design project. This is just another design project, but unlike this, unlike a lot of design projects you're going to be working on, here you have full autonomy to define exactly how you want to design your portfolio, because ultimately the person you're trying to please is yourself, and you're trying to make things work for you. So you can choose how you want to tell your story in the most authentically you way possible, as long as it's the most usable for your target audience that you can make it.
Yeah, I agree 100%. Okay, so next is do grab your audience's attention. So like I said, you want to think like a recruiter and see how recruiters have to see so many portfolios in a day. You want to make sure yours stands out, right, against the crowd. So here on the left-hand side, this portfolio is completely different from the right-hand side. Actually, this right-hand side one is a Google Sheet portfolio. This is actually really sick. So yeah, like things like this, and like, you know, adding a little bit of your style into your portfolio is really key, because then it really comes off as like who you are. Yeah. Okay. Okay. And if I don't know if Stephanie can do this, but
So I'm not sure that Steph's audio/video is working very well, considering her internet's kind of failing right now. So I can step in and do this, but that's cool, Annie. But yeah, so the role of a portfolio in general, there's like three general categories that you'd have your role fit into. The first one would be showcasing your design process, because a lot of recruiters don't just want to see the work you've created, like the final products, but they want to see how you came to your solution. Because ultimately, in a work environment, your process and your methodical way of thinking is going to play a factor into how you work with teams, or how you approach a problem, how thorough your solution really is, or whether it really addresses the needs that you're trying to solve for. So it's equally as important as the end product when it comes to a professional environment, which is ideally what you're creating a portfolio to demonstrate for. But it's also a great way for you to be able to construct a narrative and something a little bit more linear out of your previous projects that can help sort of influence the way you think about your next projects, because then you can diagnose little falterings or little aspects where you could have improved on your process, and it helps you sort of analyze what you've done before so you can improve on it for what you do later. But yeah, the next one would be demonstrating storytelling skills, where by articulating your design process and decision making well, you're really showing that you're an effective communicator or you're an effective storyteller. And that's a really important aspect for, or really, really important characteristic for a designer, mainly because as a designer in the professional work setting, you're going to have to communicate a lot of abstract ideas to people that aren't necessarily going to have the same background that you do, like a recruiter or like any other visitor that comes to your portfolio. So you need to be able to abstract a lot of these granular design decisions that may be a little bit hard to explain, and somehow simplify them to be digestible to like a lowest common denominator audience. So make the barrier to entry for your project as low as possible. And that's the key function of like the storytelling you're going to incorporate. And the third thing you're going to need to do is gain a recruiter's trust. So by effectively communicating, you're showing that you're very self-aware and you have an understanding of your own work and your design process. It shows that you're very authentic about how you worked about it. It also shows that you didn't like fake the entire project and just steal somebody else's work. They don't tend to like that very much. So that means they're going to have more faith in the work that you can produce based on the work you've already produced. And that'll help you land an interview, and that'll help you get your foot in the door. But yeah, we can sort of go into the structure of a case study. We can go first into the overview, where the main goal of an overview is generally to give context. So this is where you talk about the company you're working for, if you're working for a company, or if you're working on a certain product that you're doing a case study on. You could talk about what they do, what space they work in. You can narrow it down to the specific challenge or problem that you're really tackling, the what role you played and what you were responsible for, whether this was a group project or a solo project. You can outline how you really contributed to the project. You can outline your methodologies, your approaches, so they get a better sense of the skill set you incorporated into this challenge, and also a brief overview of what results came from the project. So this is effectively your hook. This is giving them a little crash course in the entire context that they need to know, and it's hooking them to see to delve further into your design process. So yeah, the next one would be research, and that's where you discuss the insights and the influence of your users in your design process. Because if you're designing anything, you ideally want to design keeping the users at the center of your thinking. So that's what user-centered design is. So that's why ideally you're going to have a research phase in any like major design project you're working on. So it could be things like product research, user interviews, competitive analysis of different solutions that try to tackle the same thing you do, affinity maps, which help break down some abstract or some general principles of what a user likes, dislikes, wants, needs, etc. And you can talk about why you chose a certain research methods you chose and what you learned from these research methods. It'll show you a little bit more self-aware about how you're acquiring this information, not just the information you're acquiring. And it'll also show that you're fundamentally questioning a lot of your own assumptions. And you can also talk about some of the information and findings that impacted your final design. So you're kind of explaining the rationale behind a lot of the design decisions you're about to make without even talking about the design decisions yet. So that you're carrying them through this entire information discovery process. And yeah, the third one would be process, where you'd apply research to your design. Here, this could be things like you're ideating for your feature set or your like solution space, feature prioritization. If you have a feature set, you could prioritize which features are your highest priority, which ones have the most cost versus the most payoff. That can help you construct your user flows. You can construct artifacts like your personas, your sitemaps, your wireframes. So all of these are artifacts that demonstrate how you've thought about or how you visualize a solution step by step. It's kind of like the scaffolding to the final building that would be your final product. But yeah, this is kind of where your process really comes in, and that's what people really like to see. But they don't of course, don't go overboard on it, because the final solution really matters too. And that's where the next thing is. So the solution would be your final designs. So that would be ideally high fidelity prototypes, whether those are regular mockups, they could be GIFs of how a user might interact with those mockups. You could even include a link or an embedded Figma file where they could explore the mockups for themselves and explore how you implemented each element, how you organized each element. It's really up to you how you showcase these final designs, as long as it's some version of talking about this final design here. So yeah, but what's important, ideally you don't really want to end at just the final design, because you also want to show that you're very self-aware about your process. So you want to give your entire case study a strong sense of conclusion. So that's where you could critically evaluate your process. You could talk about, you could reflect on what parts of your process you learned, what parts you felt like really worked well, how you adapted in the face of constraint, or what didn't work and what you'd like to improve on. For example, a lot of your projects might happen under a very tight time frame. So you could talk about next steps, about how you wanted to develop your project further had you been given more time. You could even talk about some of the goals you achieved that you had when you set out, or some of your success metrics as well, if those are applicable. Like things like improving click-through rates, or just improving general engagement with the product, improving reach perhaps. Like if you have numbers to throw at them, throw those numbers at them. They can only help you, unless those numbers are bad, then don't throw them at them. But like if there's always a way to sort of model the numbers so that they show a really good story of the impact that your product may have had, or like how your product impacted what you were aiming to design for. And even if it didn't have a direct impact in the real world, it can have an impact on you and how you learn from the process, and that's still valuable as well. But yeah. So here's kind of a broad overview of how to get started with writing a case study. So a case study would be an entire portfolio project. That would be that entire process that I've just outlined in the last slide. So the first thing you do is writing the outline. And writing an outline can really help according like you could use the structure we've given you, or you could use your own structure. So you don't really have to keep to it, but that can really help you organize your thoughts before you have to visually represent them. So you could start out with on a Google Doc, honestly. And this is kind of what I did for my own portfolio, where I started out in a Google Doc. I wrote out everything I could think of regarding my projects. I just ran through every single section I wanted to include, the kinds of things I wanted to talk about in each section, kind of reviewed my entire design process upon the end of one of my projects, and try to sort of assimilate all of that information into a structure. And that's where the second step comes in, where you can fill in the details. You can add a little bit of snazz to it in terms of tone, in terms of narrative. You can tell a good story, convert it into a story in general. A really nice way to approach it is to talk about certain conflicts or certain challenges you approached in the process, because that's what ultimately a lot of storytelling incorporates, right? You start out with a neutral sort of setting, then you ramp up through a conflict to a climax, and you come back down to a resolution. You can do the same thing with your design projects. And fundamentally, you have to always talk about the why. And that's where a lot of your conflicts might come from. How a certain practice may not align with the why, but the why you're doing something, or why you're making a certain design decision, has to consistently guide your flow throughout your entire portfolio project. And after filling in the details, the third step would be editing. So you can be really tempted to just run through an entire project, or like run through every single thing you did at the most low level detail possible, because you want to include everything, you want to make it as detailed as possible. And trust me, I respect that, and I've had that temptation, but recruiters don't have that kind of time. If I put every single thing that I noted down on one of my portfolio projects on my portfolio, it would take them 30 or 40 minutes to get through a single project, and that's not the position you want to put them in. So just try to keep it to the highlights and try to simplify it as much as possible. Put the steps that are really important in your end solution. If there were like granular steps, like granular iterations on like final design, you don't have to put each iteration independently and what you change between them. You just have to sort of boil it down to the key points, or the key things that you want to demonstrate. And you want the recruiter or anybody in your target audience, whether that's a recruiter, a hiring manager, even a possible design student that you want to demonstrate to, you want to have them come away with the points you wanted to convey most. So you really want to be clear and concise about it. But yeah, that's how you get started with it.
Okay, so the next part is ways to make a portfolio. So like Jemiah kind of hinted at the beginning, you don't have to quote your entire website. So you can do it in many different ways. And okay, so we broke this down into 3 parts. So it's like effort and cost. So the first part is low effort, low cost. The next is medium effort, medium cost. And then the last is high effort, low cost. Okay, so for this first version with the low effort, low cost, you can go with the Google Doc, Google Slides, or Drive path. And obviously this is completely free. You just use the platform and then you create them. And then whenever you have a recruiter asking for your portfolio, you just send them the link. Very simple. You just have all your work here. Here's an example on the left-hand side. This is a portfolio management slide deck template that you just put up your information on. You see here like iPhone mockup, you can put the information here. And then you can also use free website templates. So I know that Wix has a free plan. You just have like the Wix, like the, the address of the name, and then you have like .wix.com. So like if you don't like that, then you would have to pay. But besides that, like it should be fine. Yeah, so this was all created on Wix, Sophia Moore's portfolio. Okay, so the second way, medium effort, medium cost. So you can pay for the website templates or website builder plan. It's like a subscription plan usually, like every month or every year you have to pay a certain amount. So there's Wix, Squarespace, WordPress. So this one here on the right-hand side, this was created by I believe WordPress, and then the left-hand side was Squarespace or Mint, whichever one. But either way, you have the ability to choose different templates, but in this case, like you do have to build your website using that template and learning how to use that website builder, and you have to pay for the monthly cost, and it varies per website. Okay, so the last way is high effort, low to no cost. So you can code the website yourself if you have the skills. And this gives you a lot of freedom. That's like the huge benefit. You can make it extremely unique by coding it yourself. But if you don't have the skills, it might be a really huge learning curve and a lot of effort being put into it. So we'll go through some examples right now. Let me just share my screen. Okay, so here's one. Can you guys see my screen? Yes, no. Can anyone see my screen right now?
Yeah, you're good.
You can, you're good.
Okay, so this is Sean Parks. He's a product designer at Discord. And no, I didn't get permission from any designer to show these, but they're on the website for free to see. So feel free to look them up. And yeah, so basically with him, it's honestly such a beautiful website. Here's his about me section. Like I mentioned, this immediately tells a little bit about himself and puts a face to his projects. And then he goes into what projects he has done. So this is his Discord case study here. And then this is his Blitz case study. And as you can see, like there's different formats going on. So this is more of like a gaming like platform to get to the game. But then this here, like, well, to get to the game, but also like it's a chat, function. Here is very different. This is like a gaming site. So you see like he's showing a breadth of like the breadth of his work. And then here you have Airbase, Whiteboard. These are very different projects and shows that he does have a lot of knowledge. Okay, so here, yeah, so you can see more of his projects here, about, timeline, contact. Yeah, so that's one example, but here's another one that was also coded. So they will look extremely different. Here's a very minimal one. Hiro Aoyama, hopefully I'm saying that right. But he does design at Facebook, and he has a very simple portfolio, but it's like very elegant. So whatever you want to showcase, he has Facebook here, PlayStation, two very different platforms. Again, here's a mobile platform. So as you can see, like he's picking and choosing, but you don't have like a billion like projects. Same thing with Sean Park. He only has a few, like 5. Cool. Okay. Does anyone have questions before I continue sharing? Okay, cool.
I guess like one. So we did have like a workshop on UX research, but Sarah is asking on like ways to present UX research in a portfolio.
Oh yeah, that's a good question. So actually that comes a little bit like in a few slides. I'll go through a case study with like an actual case study done very well by a designer. So yeah, no worries. Okay. Okay, Figma, can you guys see again? I know I'm like switching a lot, but hopefully that makes it more exciting. Okay, resources. Now, this is the slide that I wanted to go to where I'm going to show like a case study and like done very, very well. So if you need any inspiration, these are 3 amazing sites to get your inspiration. Awards, Dribble, Behance, whatever you want to say. Case study inspiration. These are 2 designers that do amazing at their case studies, and I will show them right now after I do one more slide, because this is like the last slide, last 2 slides, I believe. So to build the portfolio, here are like the websites you can take a look at. You're going to have to take a look at the prices for them. I didn't want to give information on how easy they were or the cost or things like that, because some of you guys might want to go through different paths in terms of pricing, and some of you guys might be starting at a very different levels of design. So like me saying one is easy may not be easy for you guys. So I just wanted to put them all here. Okay, so I'm going to stop sharing so I can show some case studies, and that's going to go into what I was just mentioning earlier, a UX case study. One sec. Let me know if you guys can. Oh yes, Adobe Portfolio. I have used that before. That one I would say is very restrictive, but it does the job, honestly. Okay, so here's one designers, and okay, so let me do this, guys. Okay, so here's Avi. He does a really good job. He's actually on Medium. He was shouted out for his amazing case studies. So here we go. Here's Salesforce. And okay, basically, just to go through like what he's doing, he talks about this in a story format. He tells it from a beginning, middle, and end. So he basically gives the details on where he's working at. He's working at Salesforce, what kind of product, what role did he take on, when did he do it, right? So he tells that story. Here's some fun pictures to kind of like really piece the text together. So here he goes into device data and customers. He talks about, working with different types of people and how he had to explain to different types of customers, different types of groups, like what he was doing, the product that they were selling. And he was fixing flows. So this is like everything, like it's very clear what he's doing because the text clearly is connected to the image that comes right after, right? So it's very clearly like a storybook when you're a little kid, a children's storybook where like the picture shows what the text is saying, basically. Okay, connect, build, deploy, and relax. So he went through the steps that he had to take in order to, be successful, setting his goals, his role specifically, the kickstart. Yeah, it's pretty lengthy. And I would actually say you want to keep it as concise as possible, but while being as informative as possible. Because as a recruiter, again, I have 5 minutes. Like, I'm probably not going to read it, right? I'm probably just going to look through the pictures, or I might read a sentence or two. So that's a key. Or maybe I'll just go right to the bottom just to see what the results are. What did he learn, right? Okay, so here's how he showed user research. Here he talks about what the problem was, like the different types of personas. So you have the IoT admin, composer, and architect. He talks about them and he talks about the challenges that he faces. And then this is his process. These are like the user maps, the user journeys, everything that he had to kind of work with. And then he talks about narrowing down the challenges. How did he solve and work around those challenges, right? So that's probably the best way to go through your UX research. Really present it as if somebody were filming you and like go through it like A, B, C, D. Like first I did this, then I did this, and here's the proof. Yeah, that's probably the best way, honestly. Yeah, these are extremely long case studies. As you can see, they're endless, but you can already tell he's like talented and he's done amazing work. Okay, so another one, let's go through Vax Lil, experience designer, Airbnb. Another really different portfolio, but just as amazing as the ones we've seen before. So here are her few projects. So she has decided to go all ham and just like show all the projects she's ever done. But it's up to you. Take it with a grain of salt. But personally, from what we've heard, show like the best and few portfolio pieces. But let's go through this one. Okay, so this is an app that she created. It's a battery saver app. And here already the introduction, the company, the year, the type of work that she did, and like a very quick summary of what the heck's going on, right? And I actually really love her design and her case studies because she keeps the text very short and like lets the photos do the job, right? Like she is quickly just adding a few comments here and there, and like you're more likely to read comments like these as opposed to like the very long chunky text that we just saw a second ago. But obviously, again, your opinion, both of them are great at case studies. So yeah. So here's a few more major key takeaways. So this is the section where at the end, she talks about the solution and like what she really learned from this experience. And yeah, so that's super duper crucial. User flows here. And again, like the user research process, wireframing. She really goes through every single stage of the process. Yeah. Does anyone have any questions about the portfolios? Okay, it looks like everyone's kind of answering for everyone, so that's perfect. Thank you, guys. Okay, so yeah, and here's, let's see, I'll go through two more portfolios, but I want you guys to be interactive now. Like Chinmaya said, we wanted to add like a very interactive section, and I want you guys to pretend that you guys are a recruiter. And I feel like you guys should do the same when you guys look at your portfolio. Try to distance yourself from your portfolio and be like, okay, I'm a third-party person. What the heck am I thinking when I'm looking at my website, right? So let's go through this one. This one's Tofu Designs. I love their portfolio, so I just put this here, but it's actually a design studio. But design studios also have to have a portfolio to showcase their work. So feel free to comment down below or unmute yourself. What do you like? What do you see are like really good practices that you kind of want to take with you for your portfolio, and maybe things that you don't like and maybe would shy away from? So here's their front page, and this is their one-liner. Our projects. So here they are.
We got a lot of insights in the chat.
Yeah.
Kelly's
Feel
saying
free
she
to
likes
just, like,
the arrow
word them out.
animation.
Like speak them out to the distance.
Yeah,
Because I can't see them.
it's all good. I can read them out otherwise.
Yeah.
So yeah, Kelly loves the arrow animation. I agree with her. She feels like it's clear on how to advance. It's a very clear call to action. You're right. And that can really help, like, just guide the user there. So Sarah also
Nice
feels like there's a
review.
very clear call to action with the project. Wait, sorry, who was speaking?
Oh, I just said there was nice reveals on page load. Like when you loaded this page, I think
Yeah.
for all the text on the other site too, they did the like reveal animation where it like
Mhm.
comes down and then like goes up in opacity.
Yeah. I love that as well. You might, Chinmaya.
Oh, sorry.
Feel free to keep going. Is there anything
Oh
else?
no, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
cool.
it's just
Yeah.
Sarah said there was a really clear call to action on the homepage. If you go back to the home, so yeah, if you went back to like the regular homepage for Tofu Design, could you do that real quick?
Yeah, I can.
So, ooh, this intro animation is really nice. The art projects
Yeah,
and the
that loader.
arrow, Kelly and Sarah were basically talking about how it was very clear on how to advance there. That was the first thing you kind of bump with. And the movement of the arrow, I think I agree with her in that the movement of the arrow automatically draws the recruiter's eye to that.
Yeah.
So then it's a very easy guidance system.
Yeah, I would agree. Great. And it's also one click, right? One click. I mean, like no clicks, actually, just scroll and you already see the projects. Like how quick and easy is that to just like get access to these projects, right? Okay, so let's look through some case studies, because I know case studies is really the big part of like portfolios, and they can get kind of. Yeah, I'm gonna try to scroll like as if I were a recruiter. How fast do I have to kind of scroll through everything? Maybe I'd read here just for a little. Keep going. And then let's see.
Sometimes if you're doing animations where a lot of text is being revealed and hidden, it's sometimes nicer to make it like an interactive. So for example, if you go up to this top, like that one, there was another one too, but there's a lot of text that is coming in and out of existence between these two states. One cool way to incorporate this is you could have a scroll animation where depending on like, the point of the page you're at, it'll like scrub through it, or you could like make it interactive in some other way. Because sometimes like if I wanted to read this, I would have to like right click on the GIF and say pause or something like, you know, it's nice to like make things more interactive in the ways that you can. And then also, yeah, like what Sarah said, for instance, I think they did a good job at spacing the text between the imagery pretty well. But if there was a lot of like animations really close to the body, so if you like go down a little bit, they put a lot of padding around this text, so it's not a huge concern, but like if there was a lot of moving stuff close to your copy, then people have trouble reading it because your
Yeah.
eyes like be distracted all the time.
Exactly. I also agree. Yeah, this is something unique that I feel like they do, and I think it's kind of cool. But yeah, great, perfect. I'm
Yeah.
not gonna spend too much time on this website. Feel free
Actually,
to like
Sarah
look
said
into.
something really interesting about like
Mhm.
the fact
Yeah,
that
yeah, yeah.
the constant animation up there, like it doesn't like Hockey was talking about how it interferes with the text, but the fact that like the animation at the top, the one where the box is sliding in and um out of the screen, that can be really dizzying. That's what Sarah was talking about, and
Mhm.
I actually really see where she's coming from there, especially if you're looking at that for a long time. While it is appealing, it can get a little bit like abrasive after a while.
Yeah,
Like a
I
hover
would say,
interaction would be nice to control. That's a really good idea. Might steal that from my own portfolio.
yeah, but that's great. Feel free to look at these. Okay, let's do one more look at somebody's portfolio. Okay, here's a UX UI designer, UI UX designer. His Vladimir. Let's go to his works.
So you can see this is an example of a really non-linear portfolio.
Yeah, so I regularly post things on Dribble, Behance, and yes, discover latest case, recent stuff. Okay, so here are his sections. Oh my god, oh my god. Okay, so here's the thing. If you have like a really complex website, like it's taking forever to load. Like can you guys see my cursor like freezing? I
That's
don't know if you
not
guys can
just
see
the
that.
zoom lag. That is the
No, it's
actual
not.
loading
It's not.
time.
It's like me actually moving, but like the actual computer is not letting me move it. Let's look at case study.
So Kelly, the most likely scenario here is that he hard coded the site. I think you might be able to do this with Webflow, but like it would take a lot of time. So like he may have just like, because there's a lot of custom interactions there too and custom
Mhm.
animations. It's very realistic that he may have just uh, created this like hard coded from like scratch with HTML and CSS. But of course, you can incorporate that with Webflow. So there is a way you could accomplish that. If there is one, I haven't figured it out though.
Okay, I'm just going through. As you can see, this was a branding case, and he decided not to put any text for his case. So let me actually click on one of these. I'm pretty sure, wait, no, I think he posts things on there. I would say maybe this one actually has some text. I'm not sure. Okay, so he looks like somebody who doesn't do full-on case studies. Instead, he just links his work from to like Behance or Dribble, right? So here's some work that he's done. Yeah, and he doesn't put any text. So I feel like his would be very flashy, very like eye-catching, like truly unforgettable. Like you will not forget this, but his process and his thinking is clearly hidden. You don't know what he was thinking through this process, right? So it's probably better for a recruiter to be able to see what you're thinking.
Also,
And
Annie, I think Sarah had a really good question that you might be able to address in this context, where like, is there a point to having a Behance or a Dribble, sorry, or a Dribble, if you already have a separate portfolio site?
yeah,
Is there,
so yeah,
well,
think of
how
like
would you?
Behance and like Dribble as like your design social media, where you kind of want to get clout from like having your stuff posted, and then like the more people who see it, maybe you get hired, or maybe people will praise your work or give you feedback. That's basically what it's for. Yeah, it's just like a social media. Wow, there's a lot of stuff in the chat. I don't know what's happening. I'm gonna stop sharing because it's almost time's up, but I will answer, or you can like feel free to like say what they're saying.
So Sarah's actually asking, alternatively, can you just use Behance and Dribble? Usually, actually, there is using just a Behance is a very valid way to go about it. A Dribble might be less so because, like Haki said in the chat, it's not less necessary because the amount of information you can convey is very limited. So like it's more of a place to play and to show like final products or final concepts that are really interesting. So yeah, but yeah, I think that's a lot of great questions, and I think we're coming up around the end of the workshop, so I'm going to stop recording now. But we can have a great Q&A session afterwards, so because we'll stick around. All right, so I'm going to stop recording now. But thank you guys for like showing up still.
Thank you guys for coming. Hopefully that's helpful.